Hey guys, I got a pretty cool build to show, and I always said that Death Oath is like a worse version of Righteous Fire. It has lower the damage, it doesn't really have visuals, so I never really played with it. But for some weird reason I decided to give it a try. And actually I was very surprised how satisfying it is to play, and that it actually scales all the way to tier 15, 16s. But I wanted to add some twist and didn't really want to just maximize the Death Oath. I wanted to add Viper Strike because there is another interesting synergy. So maybe I should begin. Death Oath basically is like an aura that does damage like Righteous Fire. It does heals damage, but each time you kill an enemy, you also start degenning 450 heals damage per second, which can be mitigated with heals resistance. And the support jumps inside this body armor obviously are gonna affect the Death Aura. And as of recently, it is now easier because it always used to be so annoying to color the Death Oath because you needed some greens and basically like 5 off colors, right? But now you only need 4 off colors because you can use life tap. In fact, you have to use life tap to enable duration tag. When you add life tap, then you can add swift affliction and you can add less duration. I believe previously people were using arcane surge to enable that tag to add more support gems. But now you just use life tap and then you use some other skill like shield charge linked with life tap, like low level, so you can proc the life tap buff easier, and then that will allow you to get the life tap damage for the body armor. So you basically run around degenning enemies like Righteous Fire would, but with heals. However, this is Occultist, and Occultist you also have like Blasphemy Temche or Blasphemy Despair, and because of that Occultists have the explosions. So it's very satisfying. You basically charge near the enemy pack and then we degen and then everything explodes. If there is a tougher rare among those enemies, it dies. However, this build is not really designed for a single target because like normally I checked other builds and people are usually using buffs to have another 6 link setup and using like Horsicaro because it scales the same way with the heals damage over time and the heals damage over time multipliers. However, I wanted to add poisons with the Viper Strike. And the reason for that is Arakaali's Fang dagger. You raise spiders from corpses. You need 10 corpses to raise 20 spiders. 20 is the maximum spiders. And each spider grants 2% attack speed to you and 12% increased damage with poison to you. So you are getting 40% increased attack speed and 240% increased damage with poison just from having 20 spiders. And to proc spiders it is super easy. I basically use Desecrate without Spell Cascade because I just don't have links for that. So Desecrate twice and then pop the Writhing Jar. Boom. Spiders. Sometimes sometimes it doesn't summon 20 for some reason. In addition to those modifiers that spiders give, you also have Growing Agony Threshold Jewel for Viper Strike. Viper Strike deals 2% increased damage with hits and poisons for each poison on the enemy. It doesn't say that the poison has to be applied by you. So spiders use Viper Strike with 100% chance to poison, and there are 20 of them. And they attack pretty fast, especially if you link with like multi-strike or faster attacks. And they can stack a lot of poisons. So typically we can easily stack like 80, 100, maybe even 200 poison stacks depending on how long you are stacking those poisons. So let's say we stack 100 poisons, which is like 1 second, maybe a bit longer. That would give you 200% increased damage with hits and poisons. So you're getting 240 increased poison damage from having 20 spiders, and then after 1 second we stack a bunch of poisons on enemy and you get another 200% increase. So that seems like a great synergy, right? And Arakaali's Fang isn't that bad. It has, actually don't have the macro on to check the DPS, but it does have pretty good DPS. It doesn't have very high attack speed, but you are getting attack speed from spiders. So I have only a 5 link Viper Strike, and with all those numbers you would think that the Viper Strike would just ramp up so high and would have so much damage, but it doesn't. And I tried replacing Viper Strike with Blight. I just did not like that playstyle at all because then I changed a couple other things and I had no global poison, so the explosions from Occultist would not have chance to poison and would not ramp up Plague Bearer, because Plague Bearer is another pretty important thing for this. I didn't like using Blight, and because I did not have enough cast speed, like if you were to use Blight, you can actually use Blight and replace the weapon on a 5-link Blight, either using unique gloves that grants level 22 Blight. You would squeeze in like another 800k DPS from Blight itself. But you also need a cast speed, which you don't get. Well, at least this build didn't get, because it was planned as an attack. And it would take like 5 seconds to reach the maximum stages with Blight, which isn't great, and for clear speed it just did not feel good. And in the end I decided that Plague Bearer, being able to ramp up Plague Bearer faster is just a lot better than having Blight. Because Plague Bearer just does more damage, and it does more damage immediately. So I also tried Cobra Lash, Diversion Cobra Lash. I also tried Spectral Helix. Spectral Helix has actually the most damage per poison. And it's so surprising to me that Viper Strike just doesn't really have that much damage with poison. If we open PUB, if you look at PUB, so the Death Aura, this damage, I always check my damage against the Shaper Guardians or Cirrus. So Death Aura is 115,000 dot DPS against the Shaper and Guardians. So this is a Cobra Lash. Cobra Lash has 47k poison DPS. Not damage per poison, but poison DPS. 47,000 poison DPS only. And I'm attacking like 2.5 times per second. Now we can switch to Viper Strike. The Viper Strike would be linked with multi-strike, melee physical damage, and awakened chaos damage. You can like replace melee physical damage with void manipulation, but melee physical damage turns out to give the most poison DPS. Viper Strike you can also get Unholy Might, which does give quite a bit. But look at that, poison DPS only 43,000, and that is with 47,000 with 100 poison stacks. That's it. 20 spiders. Even if you add, let's say, 1,000 poison stacks, poison DPS 119. 1,000, by the way, is just unachievable. If you go back to only 100 poison stacks, 47,000 times 3 is nothing. It's nothing. Sure, it does last over 6 seconds, but even after a while, it's still not gonna be into millions damage. So the Viper Strike is kind of not too great, but it does apply strong poisons. You can actually try Pestilence Strike, you can try Cobra Lash, you can try Spectral Helix. Spectral Helix has the most damage per poison, but I just don't like how Spectral Helix, how the projectiles fly. So I tried using Cobra Lash, but it just felt so weak. I think I would just go back to either Viper Strike or maybe even try Pestilence Strike, because Pestilence Strike would allow you to apply many poisons and strong poisons on more enemies without using like melee splash, which would ramp up Plague Bearer, and Plague Bearer does a lot of damage. But however, I'm not doing enough damage to ramp up Plague Bearer against like one enemy pack, which by the way usually dies before I can even swing. So Death Orb is basically doing all the clear speed along with the Profane Bloom explosions, and then against single target I am using either Viper Strike or other skills that I mentioned. Like I was able to farm all the red tier maps. I haven't really tried, I only tried 2 Conquerors, but this build is really not for single target. You're not gonna enjoy doing Conquerors and tier 16 Guardians with this, unless you invest more. By the way, I invested a bit over 10 Exiles, but because I was flipping different items, swapping gems, checking all things out, and you can probably do it for less than 10x. It's pretty cheap to start with. Death Orb is like cheap, like nothing. You get a 6 socket. Try to get as many greens and blues, and then use the Harvest Craft to turn random colors into blues and greens. And I actually hit it on the first try. Arakaali's Fang is like 40k or something. So I don't have a lot of life, but this is also level 89. You can improve it quite a bit more. While I don't have a lot of HP, I do have Divine Flesh, which gives me +5 to maximum Chaos Res and 50% of elemental damage taken as Chaos. And I do have also Dodge, I do have Wind Dancer, and I do have Blasphemy Temp Chain. So I slow enemies down. They also get blinded because I added one jewel for minions to blind on hit with attacks, and spiders just have melee special as well. So they are blinding enemies pretty reliably. So enemies are blinded. Oh, I got 81 here stress. I'm a bit squishy against physical hits, but other than that, this build doesn't feel that squishy. If I had more sockets, and I could, but I wanted more damage. If I had more sockets, I would probably use maybe Enduring Cry on the left click, which would be a bit annoying because it would not be instant, but that would give me life regen and endurance charges. And for clear speed, by the way, this was amazing for the clear speed. As soon as I put on Death Oath and started shield charging, I also had 7 leak steps. It was so fast, but I'm not really good at shield charging and navigating. I always get stuck behind something and it just like does nothing, or I click too close to me and it just doesn't shield charge anywhere. I'm just really not used to shield charging, and you can definitely be a lot faster if you are used to shield charging around. So the build works fine in red tier maps. It can do logbooks, it can do heists, it can do pretty much everything except bossing. For bossing you would really need to power up Plague Bearer more or do other changes. And I'm not entirely sure what. I personally did not think about this build as anything other than for clear speed. And for me this works well. I think I'm gonna keep this build just to farm maps faster, and it's just very satisfying to farm with this build because you basically don't need to do anything and everything explodes. And sometimes you just click Plague Bearer when enemies just don't die for too long. So I'm not gonna talk about all the items separately. I'm just gonna include path of building import code. You can check all of the items. I'm just gonna note that this ring is pretty important. You want either chaos resistance while affected by Herald of Agony, or increased chaos damage obviously, but also you want, where's my Agony, you want diversion Herald of Agony, because diversion quality gives 20% extra chance to poison on hit, which is global, and you want as much global chance to poison as possible to ramp up Plague Bearer with explosions. The other items you're gonna see in path of building. The next build I have kind of planned out, but I'm not sure if it's gonna work, so I'm not gonna talk about it other than to mention that I wanted to do Forbidden Rite self-cast. And not just simple Forbidden Rite, but okay, I don't want to spoil it, but if it's gonna work, it's gonna look very cool. It may not be very high damage and may not be very functional, but it's gonna look absolutely cool. So for now, thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.